Hey guys, Pastor Jason, thank you so much again for letting me join you as we continue this journey through the life of David, a man after God's own heart. Today we're looking at a really interesting story. God said yes to David over and over and over again, and he certainly blessed his life in incredible ways. But there were times when David had to deal with no, just like all of us have to deal with no. I mean, David was a man that lived under authority. Even being the king, he still didn't get to do everything he wanted to do. And there were times where he had to obey rules that didn't make sense to him, and he had to follow laws and customs that didn't make sense to him or that he didn't like. And so for our icebreaker question, I kind of want to go that route because I think it'd be interesting. What are some rules? What are some laws that you don't like or that don't make sense to you? And these can be, in the civic world, so, laws of man, or these can also be biblical things. But what are just some laws or some rules that at times seem silly to you, or ones that you just don't like because they're really hard to obey? Take a second, be real, be honest, and I'll see you for just a second in this amazing, amazing story. So guys, our story that we're looking at today is a really, really interesting one. And the more I study this story and examine it, I love it more and more every time that I look at it, because it's one that it's not a traditional Sunday school story. We see David now being the king of Israel, and God has blessed him in so many incredible ways, and he's won victory after victory, and he's had success after success, and he's taken Israel to places that it's never been, and he's kind of examining his life, and he's examining in ways he can honor God, and he wants to do something really, really, I think this beautiful. And so if you want to look at this story specifically, of course, hit pause like always. We're going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 7, and we're going to be looking at this interesting interaction between David and Nathan. And so if you remember, Nathan is this guy that is a prophet of God. A few chapters later is the one that confronts David when David's in the midst of his sin. If you weren't with us last time we got together, we talked a little bit about Nathan and the power that he brought into David by speaking truth into his life when nobody else would. Well, in this situation, David is saying, hey, look, I've been blessed. I'm living in this house of cedar, this beautiful palace, and I look out at how we are worshiping our God, the God who's given us this victory and the God who's blessed me. And this God's still in a tent. The Ark of the Covenant was in this tabernacle, and it was a portable situation. At Ignite Church, we've been a portable church for our entire history, and so we set up and we tear down. And as David's looking at the Ark of the Covenant and the area of worship, it's the same thing. He says, this isn't right. This isn't right. If I have this beautiful place, then God should have a more magnificent place where we could go and honor him. And so he's speaking to Nathan. He says, I want to build God a house. And Nathan, being close to the king, and it sounds like a great thing, he says, well, just go do it. Go do it. So it's interesting. We have Nathan here, the prophet of God, kind of affirming David's opinion, but they don't do something really important, guys. Nathan doesn't pray about it. And the Bible never says that David prayed about it. So again, David thinks this is a good idea. And Nathan thinks this is a good idea. But they haven't checked to see what God thinks, because often what we consider to be good, God has a different opinion on. There are so many times in my life, and probably in your life as well, that we think we know the right way. We think we've met the perfect girl. We think we see the perfect job. We think we found the perfect church. And we're determined we're going to move forward without seeking the counsel of God. Anytime we feel that way, I want to go ahead and just tell you guys, we need to hit the brakes. So as you go into your time of questions, there are a couple of questions I want you to consider. First of all, have you ever had a time in your life where your plan jumped ahead of God's plan, where your timing, jumped ahead of God's timing? Have you ever had a time when you say, hey, this is a good thing, I'm going to dive in. Maybe I'm not going to pray about it. Maybe I'm not going to consider time. I'm going to make it happen. Have you ever had a situation in your life where you've done that? And if so, what was the fruit of that? What happens whenever we try to jump ahead of God's plan and do something on our own? Take a second, discuss that, because it can happen with good things, and it can happen at times with not good things. And it's always interesting when we try to jump ahead and try to make God do something ahead of his own schedule. Secondly, wanted you to consider and just talk about as a group, what's frustrating about not being able to do the things that we want to do, especially if we feel like they're things that are good things. God approves things, beautiful things, blessed things. So what are some of the frustrations at times that we have to deal with And what is it like to deal with those frustrations when we can't do the thing we want or can't have the thing we want? And so every parent, has gone through this time where you want a baby and you're wondering about the timing. Again, for some of you in the small groups, you see your career, you see where you should be and you're not there yet. Take time to discuss, what it feels like to have a vision, but the timing it isn't quite there yet. It's frustrating, it's hard. Take a second, talk about it, and then we're going to jump back into the story of David as we hear a no from God. So guys, as you look at this story, it's really interesting. Of course, when God finally comes to Nathan, because Nathan didn't go to God, God basically says, when did I ever say I wanted a house? And so David is confronted through the voice of Nathan with this no. No, David, I don't want you to build me a house. I don't need that. I'm not like a human king. I don't need the same things that you need. And to be honest, you're not the guy that I want to do this work. Often when God says no, with a dream or a vision or a desire we have, often that no isn't a permanent no. There are so many times in my own story, in my own life, when I have gone to God over something and I've really felt that He's saying, no. But a lot of times that no is a not yet, is a wait. And waiting can be just as hard as hearing a solid no. And in this story, when we continue this story, and if you want to continue to look on and starting in verse 12 and going through verse 17, God speaks to David. He says, listen, I love your heart. And I love the fact that you want to do something to honor me and to make me, someone that the nations can honor. But you're not the person that I want to build me a house. Let me build you a house. I'm going to build you a house, and your family, there's going to be someone in your family, someone that we now know to be Solomon, that one day will get to complete this work that you wish that you could complete. And so God is saying to David, listen, I think it's a beautiful thing to have a temple, to have a house. You're not the guy that's going to do it, though. You're not the one that's going to do it. There's going to be someone that's going to come after you that's going to complete this good work. And to David's credit, when he hears this no from God, you're not the one to do this. Because let's just be honest, it would have been a real point of pride for David to be able to build a temple. I mean, he's already the giant slayer. He's already the anointed king. He's the greatest leader in the history of Israel. He's the most successful monarch that has been on the throne so far, even though there's only been one other person before him. He's accomplished some great and powerful things. If he was the guy that built a temple for God, who up to this point for several hundred years had been traveling around a tent, that's a big gold star on David's lapel, and God's saying, you're not going to have that honor. One of your children is going to have that honor. Someone that's going to come from your line is going to have that honor. It had to be disappointing for David. But to David's credit, he did everything that he could to set up his son for success. He did everything that he could. Instead of being bitter at God, he tries to accept the word that the Lord has for him and make sure that his son is successful, that the next generation is able to accomplish the thing that he couldn't accomplish. At Ignite Church, one of our core statements is that we always will put the next generation at the front of the bus. And what we mean by that, we believe that God always has something for them to do that can go beyond what we currently can do. And a part of our responsibility is preparing them for success. So going into your time of study and questions, looking at the fact that God's saying no to David, but yes to his family, a couple of things for you to do. How does it feel? And what does it feel like when you get to see someone else do something that you really wish you could do? So you want to write the book and you see someone else, become the published author. You feel like you might be the person that's best suited to be on stage if you're in the church world, and yet someone else is elevated to that position of leading worship or speaking the word or doing that thing that you feel like you'd be qualified to do. In your work world, you really feel like you're qualified for that promotion. Someone else in your division gets lifted up into that position. What does it feel like to see someone else have that honor? And what are some ways that we can redeem that experience? Because a lot of times it is a very hard experience. And then number two, David did everything he could to set up the next generation. And so kind of considering that concept, what are some things that you hope the next generation will be able to accomplish that maybe our generation can't accomplish? So as you look forward into the world, what are some things that you hope that your kids will get to experience in the world that maybe you haven't been able to experience? Like, will we be in space? Will everyone be able to fly? What do you think the next generation is going to be able to accomplish in technology and communication and you maybe hunger? I don't know. Take some time and talk about that in the church. What is the next generation going to be able to do for Jesus? What are some things that you hope for and pray for that they will be able to accomplish that maybe we haven't been able to accomplish yet in this generation? Take some time and talk about those things. What does it feel like to see someone else elevated? And what are some things you hope the next generation can accomplish? And I'll see you in just a second. Guys, as we conclude our time of study for this week, some practical things I'd really like to bring forward to you, because we see God tell David no. We see God tell David that there's going to be someone else that's going to be able to do the thing that he wants to do. And as I mentioned earlier, to David's credit, he really does his very best in pouring into the future work. He's able to prepare for the work, even though he knows he's not going to be able to see the work completed or get the credit for finishing the work. And so I just want to ask you the question. I want you to talk about this in your group as we try to get practical with this. What are some ways that you are pouring into the next generation? What are some ways right now that you are preparing them to do greater things than you could do? Are you leading your families if you have kids? Are you serving in your church? Is there anything that you're doing in the community that's pouring out into the community that perhaps can enable the next generation to do more than you could ever do? And if the answer is that you're not doing anything, maybe what are some things that you can do? Because a big part of this time together in God's Word is not for us to celebrate what we are doing, but for us to be stretched and pushed to do greater things than what we are currently doing. And so I believe every single one of you, there's something you can do today that can really help the people of tomorrow do more for the Lord and be impacted in very powerful and positive ways. And not only do I want you to consider those things, but I want you to make a commitment. And so I know this is interesting and tough, but is there someone in your life that you can disciple? And that's a Christian word for basically, I'm going to pour into you, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to pray for you, and I'm going to walk with you and help you know Jesus more together than you ever could apart. Is there someone in your life that you could make that commitment to? And for some of you, that might come as a shock, but I really want you to consider that. I want you to talk to your group about it. Who is a person in your life that you can begin to disciple and pour your life into them? If you're married, your spouse is a great choice. If you're a parent, your children are a great choice. If you live in a neighborhood, a neighbor might be a great choice. If you're a part of a church group or a part of the small group that you're in, some of you might need to get together to sharpen one another. But I do believe that there's someone in your life that God has already put in your life that you're supposed to pour into them and help them accomplish more than they ever could by themselves. That's what being a Christian is. As we look at David, this man after God's own heart, he made sure that even after he was gone, that the work would continue. And I want to live a life, and I want you to live a life that does the exact same. God, that's been such a blessing being able to go through some of the story of David with you. I hope that all of us would have more of God's heart in us, less of us, more of him. It's a blessing. I cannot wait to see what God is going to do through your group and through all of you. Hopefully we'll see you all very soon.